Hello, this is Kara from Kara Tarot. Some of you who have watched my channel might have noticed that I have started working with dominoes occasionally. And this idea came to me less than a month ago. It was just definitely something I started in August. But the dominoes are not new. The dominoes live in this lovely box, and that they were given to my father as a gift. Although I never saw him play dominoes and he never tried to teach me, they sat on his desk in this box. He spent a lot of time at his desk. He was a Taurus, he was a planner, he was a pilot in the war, and he was a mechanical engineer and a mathematician, and he loved charts and graphs and tables and math. Only a few days ago, I thought to ask my aunt, his youngest sister, is not very many years older than I am. They were a family of 10 children total. And she was the youngest, and I asked her, first of all, I asked her, did most of the people in their generation play dominoes? And the answer was yes, they played all the time. And I had remembered seeing that as a child. I didn't really remember him playing, but I would have been too young. And then I asked if the others in my generation had taken it up, and she said to her knowledge, no, none of them did. And then I did ask, has anyone in the family that she knows of done fortune telling with them? And she said no. She did tell me that my father, with his math and engineering, she said not only did he play, but he played very, very well because he had a really good memory for the numbers that had been played. And they played a game called 42. So if you play dominoes, maybe you know that. I know nothing about playing games with dominoes. This is a foreign world to me. And it's been this box has just been sitting on his desk since before he died. And then the 8 years since he has died, it's just been sitting there. And there are times when I thought maybe somebody might enjoy them. But I've always loved the feel of these. And I'm sure people feel that way about mahjong tiles too. There's just something about the tiles that's very fulfilling sensorily. And it was only about a month ago that I just had a brainstorm and said, oh, wait a minute, I read pips, and these are numbers, so I can just use the definitions of the pips of tarot cards and read them. But I did look up different systems on how to read dominoes. And there are some things that transcend the different systems. Some of the systems involve knowing a different meaning for each one of these tiles, and, except for this one, knowing the reverse meaning, or for like the 2 and 2, the 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3. These would not have reverse meanings because they're the same. So they'd have a distinct meaning, such as, a death in the family, a marriage about to happen, in kind of the way in Sibylla cards do. They have their own distinct meaning. And it's a completely different meaning if they're reversed. So there's that has a meaning and that has a meaning. And then another layer to that is something that I do use, which is you start with the number at the top and you read down. So this is a 6 over a 2. So if it's a 6 over a 2, you're having a decrease. And that's a pretty significant decrease. So then you're decreasing from the 6, whatever meaning you assign to that 6, and it's being decreased, and then attaching that meaning of the two. That's the way I read them. The decrease element is in all of the systems, but they would be incorporating those other meanings. So right away, I have no intention of learning those flat meanings. I'm simply using these as numbers. And I am using them not to read on their own, but to augment my reading of tarot cards, because I am primarily tarot based. So then if you had 2 over 6, you're having an increase. And you're having an increase from this 2 to the meaning of the 6. So I'm trying to keep it general right now, and I'll make it a little more specific later. So there are sets of dominoes that have 6, and there are sets that have 12. In one of the ones that I watched, she started with a set of 12, but she didn't use the 11 and 12. She only used 1 through 10, which makes sense because then you have 1 through 10. So because I inherited this set of 6, I had to make a decision of how I was going to reach 10, or if I was only going to stop at 6, and I'm not stopping at 6. So one of the decisions that I made is that because this doesn't even go up to 10, anything below 4, I'm not using for those higher numbers. But here I've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Again, these I'm only going up to 10. I'm not going into others. So then I have 6 and 6 and 6 and 5. So, and obviously that can be 5 over 6, an increase, or 6 over 5, a decrease. Trying to think of some more general rules. All of the same ones. So anyway, so then I have, instead of this, instead of these and these all being negative, now I can also read them, instead of a 6 over 1, I can also read it as 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 6, 7, 8, 9. These, if they showed up in this position, would be negative, a higher number over a lower number. So let me pull these down, or let me push these up a little bit now, because we're talking about different. So they're kind of, I would read them differently. These are pretty straightforward. It's either going to be a high number over a low number, or a low number over a high number. All of these, the 2, the 3, 4, 5, 6, the 1, and even this, I read as, no, do we have, is this here? Have I taken it off the, okay. I read those as positive. So anything that is doubled like that, I read it as positive. Not so much with 3s, because of the meanings of the 3, that instability of the 3s. And even though the 5s can have a contentiousness to them, they are very stable. I mean, just look at the structure of that 5. They sit nicely on their own. So that visual affects how I interpret that 5 too. Okay, wait a minute. I don't want to skip into interpretation. I still just want to talk about numbers for a while. So any of the doubles I consider to be positive. Now here right away is a difference. This is usually in some of the systems is considered, the blank is considered to be wait. Do nothing. So a double blank would be just wait. Don't take any action. Now, in tarot, the 0 is the fool, and he's not waiting. Some people believe that the fool is a querent card and always use it that way. And in any case, the Fool is a 0. So I use the blanks as meaning it's up to you. That this is the querent. Basically, any of the blanks represent you. And so if you get a double blank, this is telling me that whatever it is that's showing up in the card that I'm reading this with, it is entirely up to you. You don't want to take any input from someone else, and you don't have any other factors that are impinging on you with it. It's just entirely up to you. Now, if I had a 4 and a blank, then I would say you've got a very stable situation. And again, it would depend on the card I'm reading it with. But you've got that card situation is very stable. It could be stable in terms of being a little static or boring, or it could be stable in terms of being really solid and good. And anything related to that is up to you. So again, the blanks I'm basically reading is it's up to you. Now, if we turn this around, again, it would depend on what that card is, but this would tell me that the disposition of that card is up to you, and it's going to increase. You're going to be getting an increase that is even and balanced. Now remember what all of the 6s mean. The 6 of Wands is a celebration. The 6 of Cups is memories. The 6 of Swords is travel. And the 6 of Pentacles is generosity. So I have all of those shades of meaning of this 6. I'm not just dealing with a number for me. I'm using the tarot shades of meaning that are all the suits are potential to me. However, what's in that card will affect that too. You know, if it is a cup in the card, in the tarot card, I will be thinking of this as an additional, the 6 of Cups augmenting the meaning of that card. So then I would be saying that, well, let's say the card is the 2 of Cups. I would say the relationship is up to you, and you're adding the 6 of Cups to the 2 of Cups. So I'd be saying either this person may remind you of someone from your childhood, or memories from your childhood are having an impact on that relationship. Hopefully that makes sense. And that the relationship is growing because we're moving from 0 to 6. If it were this way, the relationship may be waning, and it's your choice as to how much that happens. So that is, now, I cannot claim to have stable, unlike the systems where you learn one meaning for each number and you apply it. My system is not that stable. My system with the dominoes is very intuitive. If you watch the video that I made on September 7th with 3 different readings, the second reading I used the François de Pailly-Mingiati with dominoes. And you will see, in some of those I read these as separate numbers, and in some of them I read it as a 10. You know, this showed up next to a card and I said, that's the 10. That it was a cups card. I said, so that's the 10 of cups. And And I took that 10 of Cups as it is. I wasn't breaking it down into 5 and 5. And that part of it is just where I'm using my intuition as to whether I'm going to be using this as a 5 over a 4 or a 4 over a 5, or if I'm going to be using it as a 9. So for these two rows have that potential to be a different number. These do not, because I'm not adding these together. And when I have on my Instagram page been doing a, layout for just the way you would do with 4 cards and then pick one, I've been doing 4 dominoes and a pick one. Now those I'm not reading in juxtaposition with a card. I'm just going by the number. So I could have a 4 over a 2 or a 2 over a 4. And in that situation, I do also consider the 6. And again, that's where it becomes intuitive. So, and because those are daily and ephemeral, and that's another part of this, is I don't feel the need for I feel that the numbers and kind of knowing pip number meanings, knowing that those, and obviously I'm Rider-Waite-Smith based because the definitions that I gave you for the numbers were Rider-Waite-Smith based. I'm fleshing out my Marseille meanings as well. So I will be incorporating those as I get stronger with the Marseille meanings. But because I have read Rider-Waite-Smith for on and off for over 50 years, that's kind of my basic language. So those are the meanings I associate with the numbers. But as I was saying with the pick one, that's a daily draw. It's not related to a tarot card, so the meaning to me can be very ephemeral and just be for that day. And in that case, I am also using just an intuitive, how does this combination strike me today? How does that combination strike me today? Do I feel that the 7 is important there by adding them together? Or am I just simply dealing with a 3 over a 4? Or a 4 over a 3? And that to me is, in a way, ironically, more like writing poetry. Because you have certain words that you can choose from, and you can either choose these words or those words, or you can combine them and use those words. Does that make sense? Comparing it to poetry? I guess if you write, then it might make sense to you. So I think that's everything. I am continuing to read articles, and I may even look for a couple books. I have heard from one of the videos that I watched, there was a woman who was saying that there's a system in Barbados that's different from the systems that come from Europe in terms of just how you define the numbers. So that would be a completely another set of definitions. Oh, and one thing I thought was an interesting little bit of trivia is that in talking about Barbados, they have throwing the bones as a term that's used with dominoes. But from what I read, they said when you're talking about dominoes, throwing the bones is not about reading dominoes. It's not about fortune telling with dominoes. Throwing the bones has to do with playing dominoes, and it would be like my father having a very good memory for what's been played. So they would say he knows the bones. Now, separately from that, we do know that there is a tradition of reading bones, not dominoes, but bones in Barbados, and there is also a fortune-telling history there. But at least according to what I read, they said that phrase isn't used for fortune-telling with dominoes. I don't know how they could be that defined and distinct about it, because that's not usually the way language works. If you would refer to someone who plays dominoes well as somebody who throws the bones, I think in any culture, that same phrase would become adopted for someone who tells fortunes with them as well. So I take some of this with a grain of salt. And the major thing that I took from what I've read so far and what I've watched so far is that everybody pretty much feels that they're doing it their own way. That however codified some of the meanings can be, that a lot of people might take those meanings, learn those meanings, but then they still do their own thing with it. So that gave me a sense of freedom to just forget those meanings and use these as an extension of tarot cards, where I'm focusing on the numbers and giving the number the freedom to be of any suit. So I hope that helps you, just gives you a little primer into reading dominoes and some of the things that are standard and a lot of the things that that work differently depending on the person who's reading. This is Cara from Cara Tarot. Have a fortunate day.